Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to Ask Enki. Today we are looking at the geometry node, and this is due to certain questions that's been asked. The first one is, how can you scatter things across a path? How can you work with a path tool in case you want to use that to drive other things? And also, can you edit the model once you're done working with it? And today we're going to take a look at how this works and go back and forth with Houdini to share a light and talk about some things that exist in Houdini which we will need to get in Blender to make certain things possible. So the thing that we have before now is this, that before now when we talked about the geometry node, how you can get this working or how you can scatter things is as simple as this. So what I need to do is make a simple copy right here, and then if I select this object, click down here within our modifier, put a simple node. Right now we have the geometry node. If I move this all the way up and go over to geometry node, we can actually select that geometry node, and scattering things here is as simple as using the point distribution, which you can lock in, and then you can also do Shift and A, press the enter key, and get the simple point instance. So this is basically this is how you do it. Okay, so you select the object, select this other one, press Ctrl and P on your keyboard, and select the object, and just to parent this as the object, select this object, then go over here where you have your object properties and hit the instancing, and now you have that box fully instanced across that. So by default, this is how these things are done, and this is how you can scatter things. It is very, very easy. Now, how do you scatter things across a path? One thing to keep in mind is if we go in there and get a brand new scene, let's make sure that we move this one over to this point, hit Shift and A, and go to the curve and select a path. At this point, what you need to do is, if you press tab on your keyboard, of course you can see we have individual points, but when you go over here and you click down here and then you look at the modifiers that you have, you don't find the nodes. Up until this time, the node thing doesn't work. Okay, so the node thing doesn't work for the node stuff, doesn't work for paths. But then how you can change this is you can right click and convert this to a mesh, and when you convert this to a mesh and press your tab key, now you have a couple of dots. So now you can do the same thing. So you can do the same thing, grab that nodes right there, go all the way up here, click, go over to geometry, make sure that you have that geometry node, and then you can do exactly the same thing, points, distribution, and then you can also do the point instance, and you have that. But one thing to keep in mind as well is, remember how we did the first one, select this object, then hold down Control, select this other one, hit Ctrl and P, and do that parenting. And once you go back and select the knobs and scroll all the way down to where you have your object thingy, and you go over to your instancing and click that, you notice nothing happens in the viewport. All right, nothing happens in the viewport because the object that we have, which is our path tool, or which is now geometry, we cannot see it. Okay, when you're in object mode, because it's a simple edge, you don't see it. For some reason, you just don't see it. Okay, so now for you to see that, you need to press the tab key, and that is the only time you can see it. And once you press the tab key, you can now see this and you can start doing stuff with it. So let's bring this one down here, and this is for those asking, how can you drive things through paths? Path driven instances is not a thing yet. Okay, so it's not a thing yet. So let's move this one down, and we can make some changes. Meanwhile, before we do those changes, let's make sure that we reduce this box size because it's a bit too big. And then if we press the tab key, not that, but if we select the knobs, press the tab key, right now you can see that I think we need to still reduce the box a bit more. So let me actually bring that even way closer. So let's select that and bring that closer to the region. And we can also bring this one about the point like so. So it's still a little bit too big. I'm also going to scale that down about that point, select the path tool. Maybe we should also scale the path tool so we can scale this. Okay, and then if we press the tab key right now, this is what we have. So if you're thinking about how you can work with this, at this point you probably may not be able to control the density because you're within the edit mode. But then you can do some things like, you know, moving parts around. So if you want to move several parts around, yes, you can. So you can select a given part and you can use this to control the instancing. You can also simply select this object, right click. And when you right click, if you want to subdivide to, you know, have way more, of course you can subdivide to have way more. And you can also go over to edge. And I think if we scroll down, we can subdivide. Okay, so you can do that. Let's actually hide that tiny cube so we don't see that. You can do the subdivide. So let's subdivide, and there you have it. So at this point you can now have this, and you can simply use this to control stuff. Now this is how you can work with, you know, this is how you can work with this kind of things. If you're also thinking about, okay, what if you would like to work with it in a mode that you can see it, at this point it is not possible. It's not possible. So this is just the only way you can do this, contrary to what we have in Houdini, which I think that the folks at Blender Foundation should put in or take into consideration, because that will definitely help a lot. For example, since we have an object right here, you can literally within your, you know, within this part, what's it called again? Within your node section, if you press the tab key, let's generate geometry. We can get a simple geometry, and if you click and drop that geometry right in there, you can dive in, press the tab key, and generate a simple line. And this line can be used for, you know, it can be used for a lot of things. So I can make a copy of this line, and then you can choose what position you want this line to be facing. And once you change the position of what you want this line to be facing, you can simply use a sweep. And with this sweep, not a sweep, you can use a skin. So let's do that skin thingy. You can use a skin to create something like one, and maybe create another one, and that way you already have something like this. Okay, so there's a lot of use cases that the path tool will be able to do for the nodes. And regardless of that, if you're also thinking about scattering things, so maybe you want to do the same scatter that we did, you can also do the point, the copy to point. So copy to point. And this is also a very cool feature that the Blender searching thing is also looking at getting, and I think that might be great. I think that might be great if we can have that. So we can also use this and connect this as that, and maybe connect this other one as it, and we can have something going on like you know, we can have something going on like this. We can also switch that, so we can switch this and connect one here, connect the other one right here, and you know, we have this going. So whenever I increase the length of this, you can also notice that we can use this to do something very cool. On the other hand, if we also want to make the skin, or you know, this stuff that we have a little bit less, we can press the tab key, and then we can throw in a transform node, same transform node that we have with that of Blender, throw in that transform node, and at this point we can scale this one down. So there's a lot of possibilities that this line feature would get us that, you know, you can not really see with this. I mean, you need to press the tab key to get this one going. You know, it might not be so sexy. Another thing which about this thing that is that I think that they should also look into is if we can also, you see how we actually use just the same set of lines. Okay, we use the same set of lines to actually make two different things. And by the way, when I mean the same set of lines, it means we can also throw in a transform right here. We can throw in a transform right here, and then we can wire this transform and get rid of this one. You know, it's going towards X, Y, and Z, so we can get rid of this one, connect this right over here, and once we click, you notice we don't see anything. But if we go to that transform and we rotate this by 90, we now have the same thing. And there's just a lot of things. You can also do the poly extrude and drive this one with it. So if we drop that one right here, we can drive the distance of this object. So right now we can drive the distance. Let's also output the back so we can have a full object. We can drive the distance, and you can see from that distance we have this transform, and then we have this. So there is a quicker and easier way to copy things. So at this point, if you want to make multiple points, you can make multiple points. If you want to increase the length, you can increase the length, and it's just that easy to start doing stuff like this. And so far so good. You can actually use this to generate a lot of things. And for example, like what we have here, you know, you can simply make a simple lamp and then create a grid, or maybe create a simple line, subdivide that line, use your nodes to drive whatever you want. And one thing to also keep in mind is the density that you have in your nodes, and also the minimum stuff, they actually don't do anything to it. So what actually influences what you have here is the subdivision, and also, you know, your own subdivision. So if you right click and subdivide, you can have more. And if you right click and actually go over to edge instead of doing that and unsubdivide, you can have less. So this is more like how you can control this. I did also try to see if I can use a curve deformer. So a curve deformer, I was thinking maybe a curve deformer would be able to do something, but this actually doesn't help. So it doesn't, you know, it doesn't influence however this works. So if you're feeling excited and maybe you want to try this, you can actually go download a free copy of this and work with it. Some other question that was asked one of those times is, if you're working with an object and let's say you choose to edit it, how can you, like, let's say I want to edit this object, I'm done with this, I just want to edit it. How you can edit that, unfortunately, is you need to come over here, and this apply doesn't seem to work at this point. So this is one thing to also keep in mind, so you cannot do that, contrary to what we have in Houdini, by the way, which if I go back and show you, you can see that we have this. So all of these were generated by simply using, you know, the same technique that I just showed you guys. So they were simply done to create this stuff, and you can make stuff like that and stuff like this. Okay, so at this point, let's say you're done with it and you would like to edit just one part, you just want to edit this part. Let's say you want to add some debris to this part. But there's just a level of unism that Houdini has that I would like to see in Blender. So you can select any of these ones. So I can click on any of this one right now, and you know, just click on this. And now if I go over to polygon and click on bevel, I can bevel just that part. Okay, I can bevel just that part and then play with the distance as much as I want, and depending on what let's add some subdivision, depending on what I would like to create, I can do that. The reason why this is possible is because Houdini works with something called groups. Okay, so we have this group here, and if I go all the way up, you can see that group is what we have. Blender also has something called group, so it's called vertex group and stuff like that. Yep, so it has something like so. So if I make a couple of selections and go over to our object data, you can create a group, and you can actually use this group to drive some things. And if that is also included, that would also be very nice to see. So far so good. This is what we have, and you know, this is basically how you can drive things and also how you can make stuff with Blender, in case you want to drive things by part, or maybe in case you want to use this to create some pretty cool stuff at the end. So tell me what you guys think about this in the comment section, and of course, if you like this video or you learned something from this, you can go ahead and give it a like, and don't forget to share with a friend. And if you're new here, it's going to be amazing for you to hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video or the next update. And until I see you guys again with a tutorial update, Free Friday, Tutorial Tuesday, tips and tricks, things like this. Peace.